Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Watch What They're Watching, where we're curious and adamant about cinema. I am one of your hosts, and I'm Kyrie.
And I'm Adam.
And today we're doing another one of our arts versus charts. So we've got Mandalorian and Grogu, some good Star Wars stuff coming up the pipeline next week. But we wanted to get another one of our arts versus charts in, so we'll be comparing 2007's There Will Be Blood with 1978's Days of Heaven.
Did you think this was a good... Yeah, did you think this was a good pairing?
I did.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some themes crossing over. I didn't know this before I picked it. I picked these two, and these were primarily a pick for me of been in my watch list for a long time and wanted to get to them. And It turns out that, was it the production designer?
Yeah, you were saying that.
They share a production designer in these two movies. So a fun connection we discovered after the fact to comparing these two movies. And there will be lots more comparisons as we go, I'm sure.
It's so funny because usually with these, it's a thing where we're either like, hey, I really, really want you to see it, or hey, this has been on my watch list forever, so we're going to do it. But there's rarely been a time where we haven't seen, or there's most of the time we haven't seen one of the films.
Right.
So like this one, I had seen There Will Be Blood, but I hadn't seen Days of Heaven. You hadn't seen either one of them. So it's always been kind of fun because most of the time we don't know if it's going to be a great pairing until after we see it. And most of the time I think we've done pretty well. There have been one or two where we were like, so that's our bad.
Right. This is a fun one, too, I think, because I would say There Will Be Blood is probably started off as an arts-forward pick, and over time, it's much been claimed by sort of the big movie-watching community to where it's fairly mainstream now and a fairly popular movie. But I think at the time, it was more of a critics darling, awards contender versus a mainstream.
For sure.
I don't know what the box office is. We can look that up in a second, but
the box office is $78 million.
Right, yeah. So that's a modest box office compared to a blockbuster, but still more than your typical arts movie. What's the budget?
Not much. I want to say that it's actually PTA's highest grossing film.
Yeah, and it looks like a budget of $25 million. So that's a pretty decent. That's right around where you want to be of like that's what, a 3-time multiplier. So it broke even and made money. So that's a good.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I forgot about his one battle after another was obviously the biggest. Then There Will Be Blood.
Right.
Then There Will Be Blood was the second highest grossing. So it's not crazy. It's not crazy numbers, but $76 million for an R-rated film.
Yeah,
by PTA,
period piece.
That's not. Yeah, it's not nothing.
Yeah. Well, before we get there, I did get to the theater this weekend. I'm not remembering. Did you get to the theater?
I didn't. Yeah. So the most recent thing I think I'm still reeling from Animal Farm.
Sure.
I am seeing Top Gun Maverick tomorrow evening. So I will be putting something out for that soon because my boss at work we were talking and I was talking about how I write movie reviews and he was like, can I request one? And I was like, sure. What's up? He was like, Top Gun Maverick. I was like, I've been meaning to watch that. And then just serendipity, it turned out I was looking at upcoming things and just looking at AMC getting my tickets for hot things coming out and saw that was getting a re-release. And so I was like, hey, this works out great. Why the heck not? I've heard from more than one person that like Maverick is something that you want to see on a big screen if you can. So I'm super excited about it. So I'll be seeing that tomorrow. And then I have Arrietty IMAX 4K release next week. But yeah, I do want to try to see something new before Mandalorian and Grogu, but I am at the very least seeing Top Gun Maverick, and we'll talk about that on the next.
Top Gun Maverick in theaters is one of those movies that probably gets like a minimum of 1.5 to 2 stars bump just for seeing that thing in theaters.
Yeah.
It is so electric.
And because I watched the first Top Gun for the first time just a few years ago, I liked it. I had heard jokes about like, oh yeah, it's really gay. I was not prepared quite for how gay it was. That beach scene, I was like, you gotta kid me.
Yeah, no
But I
spoilers,
think
but there's certain it is a legacy sequel, so
okay.
set your
But no,
expectations.
I've heard nothing but wonderful things about Maverick. I remember Maverick was kind of one of those films that post-pandemic people were like, "Oh, Tom Cruise is saving cinema. Cinema's back."
Truly. He
So
truly
I'm
is.
very, very excited. Very, very
Yes.
excited to see that.
Well, I did get back to the theaters this weekend. I actually did a double feature.
Oh,
I did the double feature because I wanted to see the Billie Eilish James Cameron movie,
that's
and I wanted to see it in 3D. And so the showing was a little earlier than I usually go to, which then means I was able to see another one afterwards. So, quick review on that one. It was fun. I don't watch a ton of concert movies. From what I've seen of what people have said, they say it's one of the better ones. Obviously, James Cameron is doing cool camera things. I love Billie Eilish as a person. I think that she's just super original and super like passionate about worthy causes, and I can appreciate that from her. So I just appreciate listening to her, and I do like her music. So I had a good time. And then I did stick around and caught Sheep Detectives.
yes.
Sheep Detectives was getting rave reviews. We'd been kind of texting each other back and forth, sharing
Mhm.
screenshots of just the momentum it seemed to keep building across different people reviewing, and opens up a good conversation. I think that we'll bring up at various points, but just of like, hey, as a genre movie, as a family movie, this is a 5 out of 5 movie. Like, it's exactly what you want out of a family movie. It doesn't mean it's going to be your personal top movie ever. Like, it doesn't compete with Citizen Kane or The Godfather or, Lord of the Rings, anything like that. But as a family movie,
Seen Citizen Kane, right?
I actually haven't. I don't know why I used that one.
Snap. Okay, no, it just we hadn't talked about it, and so
Yeah,
all good.
I've seen enough spoofs to know like general overview what's going on there.
Yeah. Have you seen The Godfather?
We'll have to catch that sometime. I have seen Godfather Part 1, not
Okay.
Part 2.
Oh,
Um,
wow, we got work to do, Adam.
One of my brothers was texting me a list he's been working off of top movies, and I have quite a bit of work to do as far as what critics consensusly agree are sort of the top movies over
Yeah.
whatever. Anyways, back to Sheep
I'm so
Detectives.
sorry.
And Sheep Detectives is great. It's Knives Out meets Babe. Is
Okay.
I mean, it just hits all the
I
beats
love
you would
that.
hope. It's emotional, probably 3 different parts I teared up at. The ending like got fairly emotional. Like it just does really, really good at playing those emotional beats really well, of like talking through grief, and way more boldly and head on than many sorts of those movies tend to go. So just really like a really good movie, really, really quality. And the humor, there's a good mix of your sort of British dry humor, your puns, your funny
Mhm.
situations, couple slapstick moments, but it never really veers into like the irreverent or potty humor type stuff. So it does kind of keep you above that, which, I can appreciate,
Right.
especially nowadays in those types of movies.
For sure.
And I think I'm just probably naive and can believe anything, but gosh, these movies just get me every time with who the murderer is. I thought I was creative and I picked a really like outside the box person to be the murderer, and the
Huh?
reveal happens and it kind of fakes out to that person. I was like, my gosh, I was right for once in my life. And then, well, bam, it
Nope.
slapped me across the head. And I was like, I did not see that one coming. Wow, well done. So really, honestly, I might like it even better than Knives Out 2 and 3. I think it's a really good
Wow, high
movie.
praise.
Really encourage people to go see it if you can. As far as ages, I would say probably like 7 or 8 and above.
Okay.
I
So
think
family movie, but they need to be at least able to follow a narrative.
I think so. And like you have to be kind of okay with somewhat talking about death and murder and like detective
Mm,
type
mm.
things. It's not, yeah. So I think like if Oliver saw it, like it wouldn't be bad. He just might not
It
be
would just
as
go over his
engaged.
head.
He would miss a lot of things.
Yeah.
but really good. I'm really happy I got to see Cheap Detectives.
Cool. Maybe, yeah, I was looking at what is playing this weekend. They're doing a re-release of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but I should probably try to see new releases. There's a movie with Henry Cavill and Jake Gyllenhaal that looks pretty good. But if not, I might. You may have convinced me to watch
I
this
think
thing.
I think Sarah would love to go with you if
Okay.
you're looking for more of a thing to do together. I you could convince her to go to that one, I think.
Okay. Cool. Well, and yeah, I'm excited. That's gotten me. Yeah, that has me intrigued. I have seen a lot of my friends on Letterboxd who have seen it have been hovering like 3.5 to 4 stars, where I'm like, that's not earth shattering, but that makes me excited to go see
But
something
again,
that I
it's
previously was like, this'll be fine.
But again, a 3.5 or 4 for this type of movie is a 5,
Yeah,
you know? You know what I
right.
mean? And I think if I had a critique, I would say at times the filming did feel a little like streaming-y, if that makes sense. Like
That
I think
totally makes sense.
they could have done a little bit more with some of the light and some of the things. There's some like cool shots of things they do. I think only the first 5 minutes of looking at the sheep was kind of like, but then after that, I think you just kind of get used to it and it doesn't look that
Okay.
bad, honestly. So
Interesting. Okay, well, yeah, you've definitely intrigued me. We got some good stuff coming out soon, and I confess I am like embarrassingly excited for The Mandalorian and Grogu. The more I see about it, and well, because we talked about this a little bit, there has been a leak. It's just rumors. Nothing has been confirmed by executives, but there is a rumor that Disney executives are considering removing the sequel Star Wars trilogy from canon and doing a sort of alternate universe, alternate timeline situation, focusing a little bit more on some of the characters we know and love and focusing less. Yeah, just it sounds like they're realizing that fans are just not happy with it. And I mean, I sent you a screenshot where for last year, May the 4th of 2025, it showed a ranking of which movies were watched, which Star Wars films were watched on Star Wars Day, like the amount of people who streamed the films on Disney Plus. And none of the sequel trilogy was in the top 10. Every single prequel and every single of the original trilogy was on the list, as well as like Clone Wars and Andor and a couple others, but like not a single of the sequel trilogy to be seen. We'll see. I mean, I would love for that to happen. It is purely rumors, purely speculation at this point, but I mean, if you haven't listened to our Star Wars sequel episode, I abhor those films. So I would love nothing more than to have Disney confirm in what I have already created in my brain that those films just don't exist in the same world that I know and love. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But Mandalorian and Grogu, I'm curious how. I'm intrigued at the very least. I want to be excited.
it looks like the social media embargo lifts on Thursday and the
It's
review
about a week before.
embargo. Yeah, the review embargo releases on Tuesday. So that's not, I
Yeah.
would say, that's like a middle. If it were Wednesday or Thursday, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Tuesday just kind of normal. If they knew they had good reviews, the embargo would probably release this week
This
opposed to
week.
next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see.
It will be interesting. We'll definitely have to keep an eye on what's going on in the Star Wars world. But are you ready to talk about There Will Be Blood?
I am ready.
So the director is Paul Thomas Anderson. He also did the most recent Best Picture winner, One Battle After Another. Some others that he did are Phantom Thread. Didn't he do Magnolia?
Yep, I've seen Magnolia, Boogie Nights,
Mm-hmm. That was
others.
actually going to be my first question. Kind of I'll also say the writer is also Paul Thomas Anderson. It seems loosely based off of a novel called Oil by Upton Sinclair. But what is your like history experience with PTA?
Yeah, first one was One Battle After Another. Obviously, one of the top movies of the year for me. Really loved it. Really loved his sensibilities and his direction and writing. The messaging in that really resonated with me. Magnolia was high on my list because I knew it was a kind of top tier Tom Cruise performance. And so I did watch that one within the last little while. I really enjoyed that one. Again, just kind of his sensibilities and things going on. Magnolia is another kind of, you reference There Will Be Blood as sort of this epic, and Magnolia is similar in its scope in that it's more contained, but it is like a lot of different stories happening at once, and they kind of converge and things like that. And so this was my third one. So I'll probably, I would guess, in the near future, watch the rest of them just because I like what I'm watching.
Right.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about you, because I know you maybe have a different reaction to your early screenings of PTA.
Yeah, so There Will Be Blood is the very first one of his I saw, and we'll get into it as we watch. Did not care for it when I first saw it. Really didn't like it. I did not entirely know what I was going into, to be fair. I don't want to say too much because we're going to kind of get into it when we talked about it, but I really did not like There Will Be Blood. Then I saw Phantom Thread, and I saw that with my brother. I think it's almost the exact same situation. We did not know what we were getting into. It was my brother's birthday. We saw like period piece romance. Nope. That's not what that, I mean, yes, but also nope. That's not what it is. It's not Pride and Prejudice. Did not like that one either. Again, another one of those things that I'm like, maybe I need to try it again. Maybe I just didn't fully understand what was going on. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I didn't like that. Didn't like that one either. And I got partway through Punch Drunk Love.
Okay.
And I don't think I finished it. I think I got partway through it, and I don't know if I just fell asleep or was bored, but I did not finish it, and I never picked it back up. So, and then I didn't care for One Battle After Another. So I don't know what the problem is. I have said about this one, I'm like, I'm older and wiser now. I know what I'm going into, and that did reflect in my review and my star rating, and we'll get into that. So I'm curious if Phantom Thread, turns out to be similar. I tried to watch One Battle After Another a second time. I just don't really care for it. I don't know what it is. It doesn't connect with me. Have wanted to see Boogie Nights, have wanted to see Magnolia, but I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I'm just not on the same wavelength as PTA, or if I'll like some of his and not others. I don't know. But that's my
No, I appreciate your
take on him.
honesty in that. And it's commendable because that's an extremely hot take in the film
Yeah.
community. PTA is kind of regarded as like one of the auteurs of this period
In
of
some
film,
circles, yeah.
right? Yeah, and so I could commend you that that's what you're upfront saying. You don't
Right.
have to force sensibilities to work for you, and that's not what you gravitate towards, and it's not what you love. But there is, I think, if as you look at film critically and you keep watching movies and doing these different things, you begin to understand some different pieces falling into place of like, this maybe doesn't work for me, but wow, I can see the direction, the cinematography, the acting, and understand that this is
For
incredibly
sure.
well put together, although it is not the thing that I want to be spending my time watching. So that quick summary of, I think, what our conversations have been over the little bit. You can obviously chime in and we'll share a little bit more about that. But anyways, you want to give a quick summary of There Will Be Blood?
Sure. Yeah. So it basically, I mean, it is an epic. It's over 2.5 hours long. It's an epic
But what did you
about.
say?
I said it's long, but it's not too long. I don't think it's too long for what it's trying to do. I think it's an epic, and I think most of the time when I watch a movie that I think is quote too long, I'm like, you could cut this and this and this and this. This movie, I'm like, you cannot cut anything. You cannot cut
Clip
a
that.
single thing.
Clip
All
that.
right. So it's about this prospector named Daniel Plainview. He's a young prospector. He strikes oil. He ends up In the process of striking oil, one of his crew dies. He takes on the man's orphan son as his son. This is not really a spoiler. This happens in the first 10 to 15 minutes. But then the rest of the movie is just kind of him being told about another big location for oil and him going out there and expanding, starting up his empire, becoming an extremely successful, extremely wealthy oilman. It's kind of, I don't really want to say it's the rise and fall, because I think the fall is it has a big time jump and it's very short at the end, but I would say that that's fairly accurate, as it's kind of this, this experience, this man striking it big, creating this wealthy empire, and then kind of what happens to him along that journey.
Yeah, I think just to get it right out of the way at first, I think what most would agree of what makes this movie so good is Daniel Day-Lewis. He's just
Absolutely.
he's just giving an impeccable performance. This is the famous,
There's
people
so many.
will quote like or they'll do like little videos of like best acting performance of all times, and it shows, I've abandoned my child.
Hmm.
That's Daniel
I
Day-Lewis in this
drink
movie.
your milkshake.
Yeah, so he's just on, all cylinders a go. He's just I think what happens for me when acting is so good, the feeling I get, or like the impression I get, and I texted you this, of like, wow, I felt like I watched a play. I just feel like the
Mm,
mannerisms of what he's doing and the emotional like depth and character he carries throughout the movie, I feel like I'm watching a play instead of a movie. I don't know why I feel that. Like, I just, in a play, you maybe feel a little bit more of like an intimate connection with the person you're watching, and you can kind of like trade places a little bit easier. And I don't know
right.
that I felt like I was trading places in this movie, but you could like really feel him, I guess. And
Yeah,
not
I
Daniel
think,
Day-Lewis, the actor. You could feel Daniel, the person, in this.
and I think part of that is the character of Daniel Plainview is very performative. You see him a lot, kind of almost strutting around like a peacock a little bit. Like, he is giving Daniel Plainview, the character, is giving a performance. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of what makes this performance so interesting, is that Daniel Day-Lewis is like playing Daniel Plainview, and Daniel Plainview is playing this like successful, well put together businessman. There's lots of scenes where he's negotiating and he's kind of manipulating people. And so I think that's what's really interesting, is there are only a few moments where you actually see Daniel Plainview with his guard down. And I think that's really interesting too. You kind of see that contrast of the moments where he's just Daniel, just a guy, and he's Daniel Plainview, this big prospector businessman.
Right. Yeah, and I think it even is, I probably need a second watch, but like it's even hard to pick out what some of those moments are because they are so far and
Mhm,
few in between. The one I can think of is
mhm.
when his fake brother comes in, you can see that he
Yes.
does have this like kind of longing of wanting that connection. And I don't think everything with his son is faked either.
No, I don't think so at all.
Right, and so there are definite moments when you can kinda see that, but then you get to these, like, snapping points for him where he then says, "Oh, this isn't good. I just need to keep that level of" what drives him is competition. It's like everything is a
Mhm.
competition to him, and he has to succeed, and it's not about becoming rich or becoming, it's about, well, I don't want you to get a profit from the railroad of me transferring my oil, so I'm gonna build a
Right.
pipeline. It never
Right.
feels like he's like, I want my mansion, I want a bowling alley in my house. It's always, I wanna be better than that guy. And so
I
in
need
these
to beat you.
moments, yeah,
Right.
in these moments where you do see the connection with the son or with the brother, you also watch those moments snap, right? His
Mhm.
son gets injured and becomes deaf, and then he all of a sudden that's an inconvenience to him and it doesn't work with him anymore. Or with his brother, he realizes it's not, and so that's
Mhm.
he
Mhm.
opened himself up to that and now that's closed. And so then he just, keeps feeding those parts of the human nature that I think are ultimately destructive and harmful.
Yeah. No, I think you hit it spot on. I think what makes this film for me is there's a few moments that I really, really like, or a few aspects that I really, really like that I want to talk about briefly. I do think everything with the sound, the score, the sound editing, I think is really, really cool. I think there's a lot of these big kind of, I don't know, the almost like the big creaking with everything with the oil, the explosion, the music playing. I mean, the tension in certain scenes where there's almost just like the music is kind of doing this rat-a-tat thing where it's just like where I'm like,
Mhm.
this is almost like horror level, like thriller level stuff.
That point, the first 15 minutes of the movie, no dialogue. It's
Yeah,
just
there's
like just that building of suspension, and you're just waiting for the release, and it just keeps kind of building.
yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis, I think, makes it. I think Paul Dano. I don't think Paul Dano is nearly as good as Daniel Day-Lewis, but I think he's good.
Right.
And I think he provides a good kind of counterbalance to Daniel Plainview. This movie did win 2 Oscars. One was for Daniel Day-Lewis's performance. I forget the other. It was nominated for 8. I'm kind of curious to just see what you think about this because I feel like it's human nature to kind of compare. It lost some Oscars to No Country for Old Men, namely
Mhm.
like Best Picture, Best Director, so on and so forth. Have you seen No Country for Old Men?
I have.
I guess this is almost like the like one battle after another versus Sinners argument. Like what's kind of I'm curious to hear your thoughts just on how those films kind of compare for you.
Yeah, it is just a funny one, and I think it's just gonna, it's two queens pit up against each other just by
Right.
circumstance, just by timing, and it's just always gonna be that way. I think even to an extent that I don't think Sinners and One Battle After Another are going to feel as locked together over time.
No, agreed.
But but
100%
these
agreed.
two movies are just locked together. So having seen both, I think that they're like No Country for Old Men isn't an unworthy winner. I think I would maybe give the edge a little bit to this one as far as Best
Mhm.
Picture. If you count Javier Bardem as a supporting actor, then definitely
He
him.
won the Oscar for that.
Okay, so that's definitely him over Paul Dano. Obviously, DDL for sure, best actor here. I'm still trying to understand more about what director means, best director.
Okay.
So I don't know. So I think probably I would lean There Will Be Blood, but I think it's splitting hairs. Like these are both two worthy movies and are both kind of held, I would say, to a similar level of acclaim and recognition over the years. Like it's not like an obvious mistake. It's just unfortunate timing, I think.
Yeah. I think you're actually in the majority on both Letterboxd and IMDb. These movies are both in very highly ranked, but in both lists There Will Be Blood just barely edges out a little bit higher. I am in the minority. I think that There Will Be Blood is a near flawless film. I think No Country for Old Men is a flawless film.
No,
I
that's
also love and this could just be like personal. Like I wrote about There Will Be Blood. I said I think it's overhyped, but then I said also not my thing. And so I'm like I do think it's overhyped. I don't know if that's just attributed to the fact that I'm a little about this movie in general and that's a subjective thing, whereas like I have yet to watch a Coen Brothers film that I did not love. And I haven't seen all of them yet, but like I love Fargo, I love No Country for Old
mhm.
Men, I love Blood Simple.
Fargo is really good. You had me watch that a
Fargo's
few weeks
so
ago.
good.
But anyway, so
So
let
I
me
just
ask my
love the Coen
question.
brothers.
So I feel like and I think it's the timing of it, post 9/11, post Iraq War, and sort of this right around the time we talked about Batman in one of our first episodes of like a terror state and what's kind of allowable of escalation of surveillance to do the right, all these different things. But
Mhm.
these two movies are both very, very pessimistic. They're
I would
both
agree.
taking
I
this
would
approach,
absolutely
and
agree.
I think based on my understanding and conversations with you, that's my kind of understanding of why There Will Be Blood especially didn't work for you at the beginning, because it is set up where you're watching Daniel Plainview, and when you're watching a movie, generally you're rooting and you want to see this character succeed or whatever. And at a certain point with this movie, you're like, oh, this guy's not the good guy. Like he's not doing.
But yeah,
He is capital. He's personification of capitalism, essentially. That like it doesn't matter. He's just trying to win. He's just trying to create this empire seemingly for no reason. And I feel like there's similar things in No Country for Old Men of like evil persists, and it's like there's this randomness to it, and there's this like helplessness of or inevitability of things sort of just happening that you can't control that are difficult to reason with. So that long explanation of saying, so why does that work so well for you and something like this doesn't?
Yeah, I've been kind of mulling over that. I think one quick thing is just I am a sucker for action films. I like action films.
Fair.
I am easily amused and easily entertained by action films. And I do think No Country for Old Men has that. I don't know that I would call it an action film, but I think it has action sequences in
For
ways
sure.
that I don't feel like There Will Be Blood necessarily does.
Right.
So that's part of it, is I am easily entertained by things like that. Part of it is I just think it's more fun. I
Okay.
think that honestly, the first half of There Will Be Blood, I'm pretty locked in. I'm pretty dialed in. Up to right around the time I think his son goes deaf.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm interested by Daniel even if I don't like him. I think as it goes along, I don't know if I'm just less interested by him or I don't know if the things around him are as interesting to keep my attention. Or maybe it's just that they take kind of the humanistic aspect away. In the beginning, he is very like fatherly to his son, and he...
Right. I think up to that point, you can still feel in the back of your head like a redemption could still happen.
Right. And I think after that point, it's just like up to that point, you want to root for him. You see his flaws, but you want to root for him. I think as after about the hour mark, I feel less and less like sympathy and connection to him that I've become less interested. No Country for Old Men, I think even though Josh Brolin is an anti-hero, there's enough about him that I think I still like I'm still kind of rooting for him. And I think I find Javier Bardem's character fascinating. I think Anton Sugar is just I mean, Daniel Plainview is too, but I just think he's incredibly complex and psychotic, and I just find that character kind of like I just want to kind of wrestle with what's going on with
Probably
that character in that
arguably
character's head and with his motivations.
Yeah, probably arguably two of the best acting performances of this century so far.
I would
In
about to
the
say of the
same year
21st
as
century,
yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
so kind of a fun comparison
So
there.
I think that has something to do with it. I think No Country for Old Men I also just, again, it might be a stylistic thing too. I really like the Coen brothers. I really,
Yeah,
really,
no, that's a
really, really
fair
like the Coen brothers. Let me also, just for fun, it's also half an hour shorter. I don't think it's necessarily a flaw in this film in the way that I love, the grand epic nature of Lord of the Rings. But if I need to sit down and watch a film and it's, 8 p.m. at night, I'm going to choose the one that's shorter.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. And in fact, I watched this in 2 installments because I got pretty sleepy the first night I watched it. Obviously, the only caveat being if I'm going to go watch a movie at the theater, time doesn't exist anymore. I'm spending my
Totally.
night going to the movies, So if
Yep.
it's 3 hours, it doesn't matter because time doesn't exist when I
Totally.
walk in the doors of a movie theater. But I can understand that in this case, watching it home, again, you can spend 2 days and watch it as I did.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I
Yeah, and
understand what you're saying. I get that.
I do prefer to watch these things in one showing, and I've talked in one viewing, and I've talked about that
Right.
before as well. So that might have... The first time I watched this, I did sit and watch all of it. The second time I watched it, I had things going on in between, so it was a little broken up. But it just, I typically like to sit down and watch it all in one go, and when it's a Friday night and I'm tired and I've just done a week of work, I think there are times I am more prone to... The long movies are for Sunday afternoons. That's when I
Sure.
watch Gone with the Wind. Friday
Sure.
nights, I'm kind of I want something a little lighter, a little fun. So yeah, I think that just comes down to I have more fun watching No Country for Old Men. It is more entertaining to me personally. I do think, the end. I also think it is a little more redemptive. It does have a pretty nihilistic ending, not to the same degree that I think There Will Be Blood does.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I think there is some hope and some redemptive qualities.
It's been a few years. I'll have to rewatch No Country for Old Men, but no, I can get that because this one is pretty, pretty bleak.
I don't have any character that I like. Except for HW.
I see what you're saying, and I agree. However, I think the ending to There Will Be Blood is better. Like, I think that's just a more...
Okay, I want to ask you about this. That is interesting.
And because like in No Country for Old Men, spoiler alert for No Country for Old Men, like it does subvert things a little bit too, because you don't see like the great shootout. You just, Tommy Lee Jones gets there and he's dead. And it's just like kind of the shock moment of like, oh my gosh, they killed the main character and we didn't even see it and it's over. And then it does
Sorry to spoil No Country for Old Men for everyone.
Yeah, my bad. And then it does sort of do the thing with Javier Bardem in the car and all that different things, again showing the randomness and all this stuff. But the There Will Be Blood bowling alley scene is just an all-time great of just
So I wrote in my notes, I said the ending, and then I drew a little arrow and I said out of place ? I haven't an answer and an opinion on that, but I am curious.
Okay.
What about that scene specifically works for you?
Well, you talked about earlier, I guess, like the fun of No Country for Old Men. I would say this is a very fun ending.
Totally agree. Absolutely.
I don't think as a viewer you're necessarily sad. You've kind of watched this movie and you're like, oh yeah, this is a bad dude. But then he's also like, well, you're also a bad dude. You're a fake religious man. And to see that dress down and then just to kind of escalate into sort of like slapstick comedy of it all. And then, the bloodiness too of it, the tying that into the title. And I think that like it does, I think, wrap things up nicely and kind of put a little bow on how the whole story plays out. And as I said, I think it is, quote, fun.
I think I would absolutely agree. I think there is an ending that could have been made that would leave you feeling very just like, ugh, well, that was depressing. That is not this ending. This ending is, I use this word a lot, like this ending is bonkers. The reason I said out of place ? Is because I do think there is a distinct tonal shift.
Yeah.
I think it is a tonal shift that 100% works for what this film is doing.
Yeah.
I think it wraps it up in such a way. It's not quite absurdist. I think you said it great. Like it's almost slapstick, but not quite. And it does, like, you have the line that I think is hilarious and that I love to quote, I drink your milkshake, drink it up. His little slurping noise he makes, it's definitely a tonal shift from the rest of this movie has been pretty straight-laced and serious. And this is just like, this man has gone crazy.
Right.
I think it works. And I think it's also one of the moments where I am most impressed by Daniel Day-Lewis's acting too. I would agree. I feel like you thought I was going to rip it to shreds, and I'm not. I think it's a tonal shift, and I think it's one that absolutely works.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. It's a fun movie. That's a fun movie to talk about too. Obviously pulling in the No Country for Old Men. You just kind of have to at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have any last thoughts or anything else you want to share on There Will Be Blood?
Yeah, I guess just my star rating. I've talked about this in previous episodes. I'm kind of doing a thing where I'm giving a rating for quality. I put 4.5 stars for quality. I think it's really, really impressive. I did put 3.5 stars for personal enjoyment, so I landed at 4 stars. And kind of one thing I said to you is I heard something or read something one time that was basically like the job of a critic is, a critic I believe said this, is like the job is to take the reader on like the emotional journey that you went on or to convey the emotional journey that you had with the film. And so on that count, I think that's kind of why I'm doing this personal enjoyment quality thing, because I think if someone is just watching it from a purely filmmaking perspective, there's a lot to love. The sound is great. The score is great. The sweeping, camera movements, the epic quality of it, the acting. There is so much about it that is so good, just visually, from a sound standpoint. And so that is part of my experience with the film, is this is really impressive filmmaking. My experience with the film is also, after that hour mark, I cannot connect with any of the characters. I don't like the antagonist. I don't like the protagonist. There's no one really that provides me like an emotional anchor. And because of that, I have a hard time really getting into the second half of this film. And that is part of my experience as well. If you're someone who doesn't care about that, great. It is a big, sweeping, epic, good time. If you do need some sort of character human connection to the narrative or to the film, then I think you would struggle with this.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well put. And I appreciate you articulating that. I'm right about at the 4.5.
Yeah.
On a rewatch, maybe it's a 5. Totally get the masterpiece status, totally get what works and what does. Like we've
Yeah.
said with a lot of things, it all is subjective. It all is, timing of when you watched it, or when things that I watch in a theater for the first time are probably always going to have an edge over things. Like One Battle After Another, I would have higher than this movie because I saw it in the theater, and I really, the timing and it really resonated with me. But I think everything that you said is really well put, and I think this is a great movie. So happy to have vlogged this one. Which then brings us to the arts pick for this episode, which is Days of Heaven. Now, I first got into hearing about Days of Heaven because of Train Dreams, which was a release from this past year.
Interesting.
And there were people making connections and more of and I don't agree with this at all after seeing it. A lot of people were like, oh, well, this is just a ripoff of Days of Heaven. Days of Heaven does this much better. And after watching the two, I'm like, what? Because there's a few golden hour shots. I'm not sure what that's really like. There's things that are somewhat similar, but I wouldn't make that comparison by any means. But right. I was interested and wanted to watch this movie. And I know that you have the Criterion edition of this movie, but I don't know how you got it or why.
I have been wanting to watch Terrence Malick for a while. I have seen, when I was in my very first intro to film class, the teacher showed many, many sequences from The Tree of Life. And so that's one that I just own. I keep meaning to watch it. I want to watch it. I think I would adore that film. And there's just been, Terrence Malick is one of those like film studies, film school names. He did Badlands, he did this. I think Badlands is also in the Criterion Collection. Tree of Life is in the Criterion Collection. Brave New World is in the Criterion Collection. He did Thin Red Line. Like, he did A Hidden Life, which was one of the more recent ones that he did that I've heard wonderful things about. So, like, he is one of those people that I have just been like, oh my gosh, this is a blind spot. I just haven't seen any of his, even though I've seen bits and pieces and have been wanting to for years.
Okay.
Days of Heaven was, I think it was a thing where it was near the end of the sale, and I was like, okay, I want to get the 50% off Criterion Barnes & Noble sale they do twice a year. I think it was one of those things where I was just like, okay, well, I want to do one more before these go back to full price. What do I pick? And I think I went and I just browsed, and I was looking at different, ratings of different movies, what my friends thought of different movies, and I narrowed it down to this one and one or two others. And I was just like, I want to be more exposed to Malick. I heard wonderful things about this one. Just, it's a beautiful film. It's stunning. It's like pure poetry. So that's what got me to get it. And I have been wanting to watch it for a few months. And so this gave me the perfect excuse.
Perfect.
But you have not seen any Terrence Malick films either, have you?
No, so this will be the first one. And so we'll talk about that, but just a quick synopsis of Days of Heaven is obviously Terrence Malick is the director. It is starring Richard Gere, Brooke Adams. Do you know who Brooke Adams is before we move on?
I'm not terribly familiar with her, no. I know the name.
I just think it's so funny, and she's so recognizable to me, but it's like a silly reason why. But she is married to Monk, Tony Shalhoub.
Okay.
and they've been married since like 1992. So
Right.
the other two stars of this, Linda Mance and Sam Shepard. So basically, what happens in this movie is Richard Gere's character starts off, very first thing is he like kills his foreman at his factory job in Chicago. And so
Yeah.
he quickly has
Says
to
it's an
leave.
accident.
Yeah, it's this whole
That's
thing. So
ambiguous.
he takes Brooke Adams, who is his girlfriend, and her sister. I might have missed
His
that.
sister.
His sister.
It's Bill's sister. Yes, Linda is Bill's sister.
I missed that. Okay,
Yeah.
so he takes them, they get on a train to Chicago, and then they're basically like migratory workers. And so they stop at a field to harvest wheat. And maybe that's another connection to Train Dreams, because, you know, he's kind of a logger that goes off and does similar type things. So they get to
Right.
this field. There's this farmer, that's Sam Shepard, and he takes an eye to Abby, or Brooke Adams' character. And then Bill's like, hey, you should, you know, pretend to like him and then we can stay here. And because Bill also overhears that the farmer is terminally ill. So he's like, you
Right.
marry him and then he's going to die and then we have the farm. And that's basically all you need to know about the plot. And you can probably see where it's going. But basically what makes this movie so special is that it is basically entirely filmed during magic hour or during golden hour.
Yup.
So that means they literally only filmed like 20 minutes a day when the sun had setted, and it's beautiful. It is, every single scene
Gorgeous.
could be framed and put up in anyone's house. It's the most stunning movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Every scene is just incredible.
It won the Oscar for cinematography, and I
did.
actually was doing a little bit of research on the director of photography. He was losing his sight, so he would have,
Right.
I forget who the person was, but he would have someone take like still shots, like take a picture, and he would like use a magnifying glass to look at it and be like, "Yep, that looks good. Let's do it." But
Right.
yeah, I was doing some research. Like there was no schedule for this film.
Yeah.
They would just shoot whatever the weather and the lighting and everything looked like. Terrence Malick would be like, okay, we're shooting this today. The script was not fully formed. This was kind of almost redone / done in post. Like a lot of the editing ended up changing things.
And it actually took 2 years in post-production and editing. And basically, like you said, it was kind of, you can totally see it. And again, this is like the ultimate arts pick for our arts versus charts.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's this really incredible locust sequence where all these grasshoppers come to the field. And it's incredible how they did it. They actually had helicopters drop peanut shells, and they had the characters walk backwards so that when they played it forwards, or they played the film in reverse, it would look like the locusts were rising and the people were walking towards it. So it's really remarkable. But like you said, Terrence Malick was so like, oh, we need to take this shot. Oh, we need to do this over here. They had rented the helicopters to come do this. And he's like, no, we're going to film this thing over here. And everyone was like, dude, we paid for the helicopters. They're here right now. Like, we need to go do this. So you can kind of see that of just like this, it's so beautiful, it's so amazing, but it does feel a little bit uneven in times, even to the point, again, 2 years in editing, and he couldn't get it to work until he invited Linda Mance, who plays the younger sister. And he basically showed her a cut of the movie and he said, just talk as your character. And she just ad-libbed for the whole movie, just talking random stuff. And so then he took that and that became narration in the actual movie. And that's what he felt like was able to pull a structure together in this, you know, mix of beautiful shots together. And so I do think that the way this film, again, is shot and it looks is masterful and some of the best I've ever seen. But I do think you can feel some of that unevenness, and knowing some of that backstory helps. And that narration does kind of give it. We've talked about narration, that it's not necessarily our favorite thing in movies, but I think this one is important to kind of push things along and kind of help you kind of can make some connections between things.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it kind of sets the tone as well. Kind of her very like almost stilted, inarticulate narration. I think it does set the tone and I think it does a good job of it. I also, in addition to all the golden hour cinematography, which is amazing, the scene with the fire
Yeah, I was
is
literally like, how did they
just
film that?
it's so good.
I'm like, did people
Just
get
the
burned?
color and the
Like,
light. It's the use of like silhouettes and
yeah, it is
it's just
incredible.
really, really impressive work. Like, I I also think I need to, and I'll talk about this at the end when I give my review. But I also found myself getting a little antsy and a little, I don't want to say bored, but yeah, a little kind of like, okay, where's this going? And then the fire scene happened. And I was like, oh, we're in. We are back. We're locked in. This is great. Just
Yeah.
really, really cool visually, just the colors and how they do lighting and shadows and that. Yeah, I mean, I think you said it exactly right. Just some really impressive work. You can see that. You can see kind of where maybe some of the pacing is a little off.
And I think too,
Also,
like when you look at the characters a little bit, like I think Richard Gere's character is similar to like a Daniel in There Will Be Blood, where he's just like
yeah,
kind of has the,
morally
for
ambiguous.
right, and for different reasons, obviously, but does kind of like cross a line, I would say, to like, okay,
Mhm,
like, are we really thinking this one through? Versus the Sam Shepard's farmer, who I actually think is super compelling and super charming, even that
mhm.
like I'm drawn to him and compelled by him. Um, and I think I wish there was maybe a little bit more there. Is maybe what I'm trying to get at.
I do find it interesting that Richard Gere's character has a name. It is Bill. Sam
Right,
Shepard is only ever the farmer.
the farmer. Right,
He's never given a name, and I think that's almost to kind of keep him a little at arm's length
right.
from the viewer, which I think is interesting, but I think I would also agree as I found him interesting in the film is I think purposely keeping him at arm's length.
Did you
Another
see
just
who
kind of interesting
almost played
thing.
Bill?
Yes, it was John Travolta.
Right.
But he had scheduling conflicts. Also, just another thing to note, Terrence Malick did not make a film for 20 years after this one. He said he was so, like, tired and kind of worn out by this one that he didn't make the Thin Red Line until 20 years later.
I get it. I mean, to go over budget and then to spend 2 years in editing and to kind of lose. Because I also read that the producer that had his back at Paramount was like, hey, I have your back and I'm going to put myself out there. And if you go over budget, I'm going to cover it. And he actually mortgaged his house to be able to,
Jeez.
yeah, to be able to cover some of the overruns. And then it took 2 years and the box office was not good.
Yeah, so I was about to bring that up. The budget for this was 3 million. It made just shy of 3.5 million,
Which means it lost money.
which is I was about to say with marketing and everything like that's yeah.
So not good.
So, unfortunate. Yeah.
But it is one of those interesting ones too that really has been reevaluated, right? So like when it came out, it obviously won cinematography and people could recognize that and see that. But I think we're kind of more mixed on it versus, 30 years later and people are like, oh,
Right.
maybe this is a masterpiece. All of it was like number 120 on the Sight and Sound list or something like
Right,
that.
right,
So
right.
yeah, 40, whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think it's a gorgeous film. Do you have anything else you want to say before we kind of go to just our
I
overall?
I think again, like I said, I like the farm character. I think I was almost there with where it was going. And I think it was exciting when the farmer goes to confront Bill. But yeah, I think it was narratively, I think there's some tightening or some issues it could go. So going to our star ratings, I started with the 4.5. So I was like, this is just the most amazing, incredible movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Upon reflection and seeing it, I'm gonna comfortably lower that to just a 4, to where it's like, yeah, if you want to see one of the most beautiful movies of all time, watch this movie. But narratively, it's fine.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat in that I finished it shortly before we started recording, and I was like, ugh, like for my quality score, I was like 5 stars. It's so good, perfect, it's amazing. Even in because I said at the beginning of the episode, I was like, oh, I think it's a flawless film. As I kind of have been mulling it over as we've been talking about it, I think I'm with you. I think with quality, I am inclined to drop it down to 4.5 because I do think there are some things that there's some I think a little bit of pacing here and there. You can kind of see that some things were fixed in post. Enjoyment, I put 4. I don't know. This is I kind of rambled in my review simply because like I really really wanted to love this one. Because like I said before, I with what I've seen from Tree of Life, I think I'm going to just adore that film. Maybe I won't, but from what I've already seen, I've already loved, so I'm
And we didn't talk about it, but there is subtext there about like similar again to like capitalism and how
yeah, yeah.
some people are just unfairly put into positions versus other people are privileged and maybe don't even realize it. So I mean there are definitely things there. It's not like it's just aimlessly wandering in golden
No,
hour,
no, no, not at
but
all.
there definitely is this sort of like it just feels like something just isn't quite there, I think.
Yeah, and I this is kind of I go back to just like I don't know if it was just my viewing experience. I think there are maybe a lot of things that could be playing into this. Part of me was like maybe I just have been watching like, I just finished school what a week or two a week-ish ago, a
Mhm.
little over a week ago. And so I'm like maybe I've just been watching like so many films for school. I didn't have fun. And like that's not all a film is. And I get that. I am a film student, and I can acknowledge that something doesn't have to just be like fun and entertaining to be a quality film. There's a lot of films I love that are not what I would describe as fun. But I was just like one of the things I said is I was like maybe I've just been watching so many films for school that I need a fun movie to cleanse my palate. Like I just feel like maybe it was just watching it. Again, there are so many reasons for why this could be. Maybe it was watching it on the heels of There Will Be Blood. Maybe it was my viewing experience. But I just found myself being like, I'm just not really like into this. I'm not really having like a swell time. I'm not really invested into what's going on. There are some scenes and some visuals that I'm loving, but just overall, I was like, just am not I'm not in this. I'm not
Right.
I'm not vibing on the level that I should be vibing with this film. Like I wanted to love it, and it finished, and I was just kind of like, okay, this is pretty, very nice,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much all I got.
No, that's okay. And I don't know that I was there. Like I think I did enjoy it as a movie, but I think what I was hoping was like a slam against the head type of ending. And I feel like it ended and I was just like, okay, like
Yeah,
I understand the themes, I kind of understand the direction and things that happened, but I wasn't as moved as I was hoping I would be with a film like this. And so maybe that was kind of the piece for me and maybe something similar to you of like you said, we've talked about Grave of the Fireflies, we've talked about some of these other movies that you can recognize are incredible and objectively not fun movies, but you still
right.
hold in such a high regard. So maybe some of that emotional connection is what I can put to my feelings about this
Yeah,
movie is I just wish that something grabbed me a little bit more at the end of this movie, but I had a pretty good time throughout. So I gave it, like I said, a 4. I think I'm pretty confident not bumping to 4.5 and just saying a solid 4 and a solid movie.
yeah. So I think I'm between 4 and 4.5 as well. I think I just need some. I'm excited. I'm seeing Maverick tomorrow, and I think I need some popcorn films. Like I think I need
Sure.
some just like I need some movies that I'm watching not because I have to watch them because I'm gonna write a paper, and as much as I love the podcast, not watching because I'm like, oh yeah, we have to talk about this. But like movies that I'm like, this is a fun action crowd pleaser popcorn film that I am excited for, and I think I need some of that. And kind of on that same vein, I have decided I'm going to start. I've been collecting these. I think I've talked a little bit about this on the podcast before. I've started collecting the Walt Disney Treasures, these sets of old, Mickey Mouse, Silly Symphony cartoons, et cetera, et cetera. I think I'm going to start writing. They will be short. I don't have the bandwidth to write long reviews, but I'm going to try to get out one small review a day, or at least every other day, for some of these old Disney cartoons. I might do some Looney Tunes as well. I have a deep, abiding love for Looney Tunes, but the more and more I've been thinking about, the more and more I'm like, I think I need something like this. Every day I want something that's, 5 to 10 minutes long. Doesn't take me long to watch. I can write a short little review on it. I can have fun. I can laugh. I can have a good time, and then go about my day. So we'll see how long I maintain that. I
Perfect.
have these big plans sometimes that I'm like, I'm going to do this whole thing, and then I get burned out halfway through. So we'll see how long it goes. But at least for the
It'll
next
be
little
fun.
bit, just FYI, both on Instagram and Letterboxd, I'm going to be writing, like I said, relatively small but fun little reviews on the classic Disney and classic Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies shorts.
Great. I'm excited.
Me too. I think it'll be fun. And that's mostly why I'm doing it. But, Adam, what are we watching?
We are watching, well, you are watching. I haven't fully
Yes.
decided if I'm going to commit to watching 15 episodes, but we're watching Book
Fair
of Boba
enough.
Fett and Mandalorian Season 3 because we are a week out from The Mandalorian and Grogu. So we'll talk about those. It'll be a lead into that movie, and then that following episode, I don't know if we'll cover anything else, but we will talk Mandalorian and Grogu. So I know many of you are also anxiously awaiting that. So should be a good time. But as always, we appreciate anyone that is listening. Follow us where you get your podcasts, share it with a friend or family member, and give us some feedback. And until next time.
Catch you later.